if I ask you as of this moment, what would you say you are politically?
I would say I'm a Marxist.
I didn't expect that, ladies and gentlemen. I have to admit, I had a feeling this was going to go in directions I had no idea. This is the sort of Yogi Berra moment when there's a fork in the road, take it. That is what we call a fork in the road. You're a Marxist. You're kidding me.
No.
So wait, so are you to the left of the liberal I would have met 10 years ago?
On some issues, yes. And on some issues, no. So when people criticize critical race theory, for example, and say it's a Marxist ideology, I kind of want to laugh because the problem with today's left is an insufficiency of Marxism. And by that, I mean, they don't care about class. And I really care about class. I think the number one threat to American democracy is the enormous class chasm that's opened up between the college educated and the working class. And I think that the entire working class has been deplatformed from American society. They have no voice in political life. And I think that's extremely dangerous. And because my analysis of our problems are class-based, I call myself a Marxist because that was Marx's point of view. Now, I don't accept his solutions. And things like critical race theory, the use of the sort of Marxist binary between powerful and powerless that you now see in gender and in racial discussions, I totally reject that. I think that is so totally corrosive. You know, I'm religious. It's so against everything my religion tells me about what makes us human, what makes us Americans, what makes us, you know, worthy of God's love. But at the same time, I have to say, I think that my analysis of what ails us is quite Marxist in nature. There's a spiritual component to it, but there's also an economic component to it. And I think that that should be the focus of people who care about the American family, for example. I want to see them talking about economics. I'm going to ask you about that as well. But so I would say, yeah, in some ways I'm further left on economics, but not in a way that today's left would recognize. They believe in welfare. They believe in handouts. They want the working class to essentially belong to the poor. They want to sustain them and support them. They want rich people to sort of basically underwrite the existence of everybody who's not as rich as them. And I think that that's really insulting and gross.
I get you. I really do get you. Let me just say, forgive me one moment. So I really want to just address for a moment those watching. I studied Marxism. That was my field of study, and communism and the left. So I can explain in very briefly what is involved here. And you are certainly free to react. But I understand everything you just said. And here is what it is. Marx divided the world by class. Hitler divided the world by race. Communism and Nazism had everything in common except that. They both exterminated vast numbers, tens of millions of people. They were both vicious. They were both pure cruelty. They were both totalitarian. But they weren't the same philosophically. And what the Marxist / communist view of the world is the proletariat versus the bourgeoisie or class difference, and Hitler, it was race difference. The left today, ironically, and you're certainly free, you know that, to differ with anything or modify anything I say, but the left is closer to Hitler's totalitarianism than to Stalin's, because they do divide the world, not by class, but by race.
Wow. That is so interesting. I personally feel that too many people are compared to the Nazis and to Hitler.
I'm not comparing. No. So I'm only doing it philosophically. There are no death camps. There are no concentration camps. People aren't being tortured to death. I fully acknowledge that. I'm only talking philosophically.
The obsession with race on the left today is reminiscent of the worst people that ever walked planet Earth. I completely grant you that. But I think you too, by my definition, are Marxist. And the reason I think that is because when I listen to you talk about COVID, and about the way that the government used this as an excuse for the greatest upward transfer of wealth in American history from the middle class to the disgustingly wealthy. When I hear you talk about the impact the lockdowns have had, how they benefited the laptop class and penalized and turned the working class who sustained that class with their labor into, lepers, forced them to bear the burden of the risk and then treated them like dirt for having done so, enforcing all of these mandates on them. That's a Marxist analysis of where we failed. That is a class-based analysis of the way in which the pandemic impacted different sectors of American society differently. And so I think you too are a Marxist.
No, I don't have any issue really. I have a lot of issues with Marxism in other aspects, as I know you do, because you just said you did. So in light of that, you might call Donald Trump a Marxist.
I say I'm the kind of socialist that Donald Trump was. I thought his economic policy was spot on. I thought it was great for Black Americans, for Hispanic Americans, the lowest unemployment in Black American history. I thought that getting rid of NAFTA was fantastic. I thought the trade war with China was fantastic. I love these tariffs. I think his economic policy was what Bernie Sanders would have implemented had he won either of the elections.
You think Bernie Sanders would have implemented?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Bernie Sanders in 2015 was asked by Ezra Klein, you care about the poor so much. Shouldn't we have open borders? Shouldn't we care about the global poor? And Bernie Sanders laughed in his face and said, open borders? That's a Koch brothers proposal. They want nothing more than have an open border.
But he hasn't said a word.
Yes, he did a 180 when he was running against Trump. So that to me is a bellwether. The left used to be like Bernie Sanders. They used to be anti-immigration because they understood
anti-illegal immigration.
Anti-illegal immigration, anti-mass immigration because they understood the fundamental and obvious truth that you can't have a wage floor if you have an unlimited supply of low-wage labor. That used to be the left's position. Today, if you have that position, the position they had 30 years ago, they call you a white supremacist and a racist. That's you see the shift in who they're talking to, who they care about.
Big tech censorship continues to be a big challenge for PragerU, and it's more important than ever that our audience watches our content on our platform. To continue watching this episode of the Fireside Chat, go to PragerU.com today.